Hello, welcome back to another episode of Breaking Schemas. Listen, I'm by myself this time around, but I'm still in good company because why? We only bring on leaders and bests, and I got to tell you, today's guest is no exception. Please help me welcome to the podcast the president of the SpringHill Company, my friend, Mr. Devin Johnson. Devin, what's happening, my man?
What's going on, Marcus? Good to see you or hear from you.
It's great to be seen. It's great to be heard, and it's really awesome to have you on with us. There's so much to cover. So, I don't even want to. I know you're in high demand, and the fact that you penciled us into your busy schedule.
We are not going to do that today, Marcus.
I'm grateful for it. So let's just sort of level set. We know the SpringHill Company definitely buy its products. Things like the shop, for instance, one of the content pillars from the company. You've probably seen the work out in the world, but maybe you don't know the orchestration of it. You've definitely seen some of the faces that represent the company out in the world, be it Lebron James or Mav Carter. But tell the people what the SpringHill Company is and what it means to be the CEO of SpringHill.
Well, if we want to talk about what it's like to be the CEO, we got to ask the CEO. That's Maverick Carter.
The president, I'm sorry. Check up. Yes, president. Apologies.
This is a trap. You try to get me fired.
No.
No. I think let's start with your first question of the SpringHill Company. We are a content company. At our core, we are a content company. We create storytelling opportunities, experiences, for whether it's athletes at Uninterrupted, creators with the SpringHill brand, and just great conversations as it comes to the shop. We are about creating content that moves and empowers, and that's us. Full stop.
So, what does it mean to be the president of that enterprise?
So I have responsibilities that are around kind of the commercialization and just how it all comes together. So the reality of it is, we have, physical production, we have a brand partnerships team, we have a studio business, we have consumer facing brands like the shop, Uninterrupted, and SpringHill. And my job is to make it all to come together. How do we, make good stuff? How do we commercialize it? And, that's really it. My job, sometimes I'm sweeping the floors and sometimes I'm having meetings with executives. It depends on the day. But I do whatever is needed to be done so that the company can achieve its potential.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong here. You are a graduate of the University of Michigan, the business school before it was donned, the Ross School of Business. Is this a typical place for Michigan business alum to be in media in a content company? Am I off? Am I off?
You led with we're leaders and best, so we're everywhere. Where aren't Michigan alums? So we're all over the place. So the answer is yes, it is a place for Michigan alums. But I also heard you say that I was there before it was Ross, so that's just your way of just reminding me that I'm not a young man.
No, you're tenured, my brother. You're tenured, seasoned. You're seasoned.
I am seasoned, experienced, tenured. You name the adjective, I am all that, including tired.
Well, the interesting part, I think that if we were to just think about the timing of all this, that the notion of working at a content company that wasn't like NBC or one of sort of the linear television providers. Mm-hmm. The idea of being a content company didn't seem like the normal trajectory for a business school student, right? And here you are, the president of one. So, how did you get here? What was the trajectory that got you here?
Yeah, certainly at that time it was, consulting, banking. That's where, the feeder systems were. We're close to Detroit, so a lot of people going into the automotive industry. I just got bit by the entertainment bug while I was on campus. I actually, with a colleague of mine, or a classmate, we launched a Black newspaper called the Black Student Monthly that I don't believe is still around, but we had a good run for the years that we were there. But it was where I learned how to publish something. She was an editor. Her name's Chastity. And she was an editor in the, I think she was in the journalism program there. And, I was in the B school. And so together it was, peanut butter and chocolate. It was Reese's peanut butter cups. We were, I was out here trying to sell ads and do all the things, managing kind of the layouts and all that stuff. And she was out writing stories and hiring and, recruiting journalists. And so that's where I kind of realized or learned, kind of what the inklings of this business is. Because that's really, if you think about it, any entertainment product, what are you creating content and you're finding ways to commercialize it. And distribute it. And so that's what we were doing. At that time, we were creating, a newspaper. We had a very specific audience. It was Black students. We created content specific to that audience. We went out and talked to advertisers and said why that audience is important. And we distributed it across the campus. That's the business. And, tell me another business in our entertainment space that isn't like that. And so that's where I really kind of formed an interest and a love for kind of how this business works. And at that point, I was still an accounting major. And I
don't think I knew that part. I know that part of the story. I didn't know that part of the story. You were an accounting major?
Yeah, I was accounting. I was an accounting kid in the B school. That was my major, and I was doing internships. I was, interning, for consumer products companies, and so honestly, I tried to get into the advertising industry. And to your point, business school, I was interviewing I interviewed at Leo Burnett twice, and both times they were like, "We see all that accounting in you. We not letting you in there." One time, I think they gave me a trick question. They were like, hey, what was it? What is it? It was the house that Philip Morris built. So they were like, hey, if you're on a floor with smokers, would you be okay with that? And I was like, no. And then suddenly the interview was over. Some guy threw me out in the street. That was it.
So accounting student who gets bit by the media bug, helps produce a publication on campus for a specific group of people. Mm-hmm. When you leave Michigan, where do you go? Do you pursue that, or do you sort of subvert that by trying to be close to it in tangential?
I tried, and the creative community wasn't accepting of me because I had too much of that accounting. Like they could just see it in my eyes. So I took an auditing job. So I was internal auditor for a company that ended up being bought by Unilever. And so I did that. And, little known fact, they got acquired and they were like, hey, you want to go live in Englewood Cliffs, New Jersey? I was in Chicago at the time. I was like, no, that don't sound like where I want to be. So they're like, okay, well, you've been laid off. And so 9 months into my career, I got laid off. But my boss recommended me for a job at Quaker Oats, which became Pepsi. And so I became an auditor there. So I did that for 3 years. But it was at that point where I said, you know what, I'm going to find my way into the entertainment industry, and took a finance job at Tribune. So if anybody knows Chicago, I basically just kind of took jobs across the river until I got to Tribune Building, and there was no other place to go. So I stopped there, and I did that for about, I think I was there like 3 years or so, and then went to NBC Universal, and that's when I really kind of made I was a real entertainment guy in my mind.
That's right.
Working for NBC Universal.
Your identity shifted. You're now in the cool zone.
But there's a transition. Everybody's got to find a path. And for me, I had to do it through finance. I had to get into these companies through finance. And when I got there, I was like, yeah, I don't really want to do this, that much. What else you got? And so then I started nosing around and trying to find other jobs that I thought were more suitable and more interesting than finance.
Now, here's what I find so interesting about this story. You start off we're friends, so I can keep it true with you. Accounting is probably the least coolest part of the business school.
We're not going to let you throw shade on the accountants. They're out here doing it. Look,
I'm just saying,
it's the
like of all
language
the
of
jobs.
business. It's the language of business.
Now that is true. Now that is true. Now that is true. It is the language of business. However, it is the least sexiest part of
True.
business, right?
True.
Um, but here you are, you find yourself kind of inching forward and closer and closer and closer to be where you want to be. And you're now the president of what one would say a very cool company in a very cool industry, but your beginnings weren't that. So now that you're running this company where people are raising their hand like, "Oh, I would love to work for them. I would love to make content. I would love to be there." How are you managing a culture that has the rigor of business that being an accountant, having language of business, but in a place that is facilitating the creative process that is driving the cultural zeitgeist? How are you managing this as president?
I think it's one of the hardest thing we do, is managing a workforce that has the level of diversity and of people and the business lines in the space that we're in. And so when we think about our diversity, I think we're somewhere like 70% people of color. I think maybe, I forgot the term, maybe 40 to 45% African American. We're about 50-50 women to men. There's a lot of diversity. And what I found is, that's hard to manage, because you have a lot of perspectives. You have a lot of dynamics. And when I worked at the larger companies like the NBCs and the Pepsis and all that stuff, there is a power infrastructure that is not debatable in those companies. Who runs those companies is not debatable. And at our company, there are so many voices, and there's a youth movement happening where I think, the younger employees or the less experienced employees have, a very outsized expectation and belief and moxie about them that, and I'm not even gonna say it's undeserved. I think they do amazing things and they see the world a lot, wider than, some of the folks that may have been in the workforce a long time. But to manage all of that, and to get to the product that you see that people that we're known for, just requires a lot of care and attention. There is a youth movement happening, and we're a part of it. And they think differently. I'm often reminded how old I am when I'm, at work. But I love it. I mean, these kids give me energy. They have a spirit of possibility and can do that, a lot of people don't have. So the challenge to your question is, how do you harness it and make sure that it's a competitive advantage? But it is absolutely something that we have to keep an eye on because, how I asked for a raise and when I thought I was going to get a raise and a promotion when I was 20 something is different than how their perceptions and beliefs of when they should get a raise and when they should get a promotion and all that stuff. So managing through that is different.
I mean, it's an interesting paradigm because to your earlier point, the industry, the content industry as we know it today in its modality today is not like it once was. So in many ways, a lot of the incoming workforce, they've been just as intimate with the tools of creation and the consumption habits as you as president or director or creative director, etc. Right? So there is not this power dynamic of like, I've been doing this longer, I know this more than you do, shut up kid, get in line, where he's like, actually fam, my TikTok is popping. It's like I'm actually doing the thing that you're trying to help your clients do. So how do you, as a leader, how do you maintain the zeal that they have, pay honor to their skill set and their expertise, while also channeling it in a context of commerce that they likely have not thought about, that you, as the accountant, knowing the language of business,
The language
have
of
worked
business.
your way into this creative space that you have been hankering to do,
Yeah.
but having such foundation of the business underpinnings that make things work in a commercial setting. How do
I
you manage that?
Yeah, I think the key is not being myopic. I mean, you can't. What we try not to do at the SpringHill Company is place limits on people.
Mm.
And just because I was about to say your business card, but we ain't even got those anymore. Just because your job title says one thing doesn't mean that that's the only thing that you can do. And it goes back to our more than an athlete mantra. We don't go around saying more than an employee, but we do believe it. And so when you think about the context of, someone who may be our office manager or someone who may be an unscripted executive, their social, their TikTok may be popping, but they don't work on the social team. And so you look over that person, you're like, man, you could live over there. But, the idea is like just making sure that there's transparencies and conversations between the groups. And to that point, not limiting someone to say, well, your job title says you're an unscripted exec and you cannot be on the social side, and so we want to find we're constantly trying to find ways to make sure that people live beyond their job title. And, if you have an idea and, if you're in the accounting group, that doesn't mean that your social can't be popping. And that doesn't mean that, you may not have an idea for a digital series or for a social promotion for one of our shows or whatever the case is. So we want to listen. We keep our ears and eyes open. We have a thing in our company called Wouldn't It Be Cool If, WIBCI, I think. Yeah, wouldn't it be cool if? And so anybody can send out an email and say, wouldn't it be cool if? Wouldn't it be cool if, the accountants, ran the creative team? And we give it thought.
Yeah, I see you repping hard for accountants here. You're trying. I appreciate you trying.
I just want to make sure that finance folks get their true due. We're more than finance. I have an uninterrupted hoodie that says "More than a finance guy," because we believe we are more than.
If you could see it, you can believe it, man.
You can. That is absolutely true. That is absolutely true.
So when I hear this, in having worked on the creative side at creative agencies, there's always been that refrain. I've never been in an agency that didn't say you could be the janitor and have an idea. Good ideas can come from anywhere, but while it's always been said as a sort of as a saying, as sort of a mantra, if you like what you feel like is a mantra, it hasn't been exercised very much.
Hard.
It's very hard. That's what I'm getting to.
Because guess what? That job needs to be getting done too. So if you're the janitor and you're out there writing up a treatment for the next show that we're going to produce, who's cleaning?
That's right. That's what I'm getting to. It's exactly what I'm getting to. In the world of advertising, we go, but like you're not billable, so you can do that on your off time. But like, I need you to sweep the floors. But it sounds to me that these aren't just platitudes at the SpringHill Company. I mean, look, I know you, so you do not suffer foolishness, and nor do you kind of dance around the bush at all. But it seems like this is very much a part of sort of the ethos and the practice of the company. And if I'm thinking of myself as president, I'm like, good night, like trying to orchestrate that and operationalize that. It is like, that seems like a daunting task. To your point, if you're writing scripts, you're not sweeping. If you're on set, then you're not, crunching the numbers or whatever you accountant folks do.
We do that.
So the question becomes, how do you operationalize this ethos that leads you to such creative power that allows the company to be so successful in the market, while also, making sure that the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed?
Yeah, I mean, it requires judgment and discernment by leadership, by the employees, that, everybody's, there's a saying that we have in the company, I don't know where it originated, maybe Rich Paul, but it's keep the main thing the main thing. And, everybody has a job to do. And, we're all open to the idea of more than, but you still have to be what you are before you can be what you're more than. And if you're practicing more than without being what you're supposed to be, that can create some dynamics that's not great for the company. So, as a company, I'm always about, look, we have kind of an unwritten contract. And our unwritten contract is to create an opportunity and experience for you that's growing, that's fulfilling for you, that's paying you well, that's doing all the things that you need. But the other side of that contract is you have to be delivering on what we hired you to do, and do the things that are of the benefit of the company. And that contract has to stay in place. Anytime it gets lopsided is when there's problems, right? That becomes either performance issues, or that becomes people not feeling like they're valued by the company and they leave. I always say the hardest thing to do when you're in your early part of your career is when do you leave? When do you leave? I think some people I think leave too soon. They hit a wall or they hit some challenges and they leave too soon. And I think some people stay too long. You have these challenges and you're not getting the inroads. The company doesn't see your genius. And so sometimes you gotta go somewhere else and let that genius flourish. So that's one of the biggest challenges. But that implied contract, I think, is kind of what keeps it all together. And we all know when it's getting lopsided.
Yeah, and what you all have been able to accomplish, it's actually it's quite amazing, in that the content that you create aren't just things that are being viewed, being consumed, but they become the catalyst for social discourse. They become a part of the cultural zeitgeist and the things that we talk about, how we talk. More than an athlete. Shut up and dribble, like these things that have been sort of reworked into the cultural practice that people use as a part of their identity. Like this is a massive thing. And when I think about you, the accountant, the accountant, what gave you the audacity that you can lead this, that you could be a part of the leadership team that makes this move? I mean, look, yes, you have an ace in the hole. You've got LeBron James, you got a Mav Carter, but you are a major part of what's making this go. You're a part of this engine that's making this go. Like like when you look at yourself in the mirror, it makes you feel like I can do this.
Yeah, I do believe. I do believe I can do it, and I think when I started, Mav told me stories of just kind of how LeBron empowered him, and I took that to heart, and I think he empowers me in the same way. And so when I joined the company 7-8 years ago, I think it was really, we were trying to figure things out. We had, some things working and some things not working. I came into the company as the leader, the general manager of Uninterrupted. This was before, we had created the SpringHill Company about 4 years after that. And so my first job was building Uninterrupted. And so the Uninterrupted you see is really just, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears by a great team that I was privileged to lead. There was a lot of work and time spent on how to grow this thing. And so the audacity that you speak of, it's funny, Matt always talks about kind of the company is an audacious ask. It was just, it's kind of, he's always been audacious. And, we always have kind of, irrational expectations of success. He set that tone for us. And so because he set that tone, I walk into the job every day believing that we're going to do something amazing, something great is going to happen. And, we're founded by a bunch of folks that have athlete mindset. Now, I'm not an athlete. I played a little youth basketball and a little baseball, a little soccer back in the day. But, but they are real athletes and they think like athletes. And that's, a mindset that I've had to adopt over time, which is, you got to fall in love with the process, so when something's not working and something's hard, you just keep working at it. And those become ethos of the company because we've seen our chairman do it. I've seen our CEO do it. And so it's my job to make sure that gets translated to the person that's, working on growing one of our brands, that you got to be okay. You got to fall in love with the process of growing that. It doesn't happen overnight. It's all the nights that you're putting into it, that no one's watching you. And then somebody's going to see you as an overnight success. And so that is propagated throughout the entire company. Everybody believes that we're going to do something amazing. And guess what? We've done some amazing things.
I think that you really hit the nail on the head with this notion of empowerment. Because everything that you've said up to this point have been demonstrations of empowerment. And that is finding people that may be the janitor, say arbitrarily, but also have these other skills, or the accountant who have a crazy Instagram or a crazy TikTok, and saying, hey, like, come, you could do this too. Empowerment sort of acts as an invitation and a charge in some ways to say, let's see what you got. And here's the opportunity to sort of touch it, an opportunity to move it a little bit forward, to really sort of put yourself to the test. And that idea of empowerment coming from the chairman to the CEO to you, and you instilling that into the culture of the place, I think that is a massive differentiator that is manifested and made real in the work you do and how it reverberates in the market. Do you subscribe to that?
You said, am I surprised? What did you say?
I said, do you subscribe to that?
Oh, do I subscribe to it? I do. I mean, empowerment is at the core of everything that we do. And, it's definitely woven within our culture. But there have been times where we felt like, the empowerment thing goes too far. We've had people, that if we don't do, to your point, that person that wants to create the show and the show's not good, or you're not doing what you're supposed to do, so we can't let you do the other thing. And, if we say no to those things, people feel like they're not being empowered. And so we will have, employees say, well, you're not empowering us. And so it cuts both ways. But I think, all in all, I think the good outweighs the bad in terms of how we think about it and how it's moved our company along, because we just have so many people that, demonstrate kind of their more than experience. We have so many people that we've grown and developed. We have so many people in our company that are doing their job for the first time. And I think, I don't think I'm telling anything. I think, Mav was saying that this is the first time he's run a company of this size. Yeah. And so for me, there was a time when it was within, something I had run at either Tribune or NBC, but now this is the biggest thing that I've run. And so we have managers all throughout our company that are doing it for the first time. And, the good thing is everybody has that work ethic of, I'm going to fall in love with the process. Yeah. So we're all working at it and we're all getting better. We're all taking our licks. Sometimes we make mistakes, but we continue to grow. We continue to build. There was a Wall Street Journal article about us just yesterday. And, talking about LeBron's insatiable desire to grow and build. And, we're launching a male grooming line on our shop, from our shop brand. And, people are pinging me like, oh my God, it's so amazing. It's so amazing. And I was telling folks, we're just building it brick by brick. If you'd asked me 5 years ago, would we be here? Would we be launching a male grooming line? I didn't see that coming. But the work we put into the shop created the platform that allowed us to do that.
And I think is fascinating about that, and important to note here, is that this really kind of pushes against the traditional means by which we hire. Now, typically, we look at resumes as a receipt of experience. You've done these things before, and now we want you to do those things here. But we know this, using sport as an analogy, that you can play this position really well in this environment and be trash on another team, even though you have the same skill set. So like finding the right people to fit in your triangle offense, if that's your thing, to fit into your culture matters, which means then the resume the CV as we know it does not have as much credence because you're being hired to do something that you've never done before. Because you may be doing that today, right now, but tomorrow, you used to make content, but tomorrow you're selling shampoo. Go.
Absolutely.
So how then do you look at talent? How do you look at someone and look in their soul and go, oh, you're one of us?
Yeah, it's seeing the unseen. I think that I think the first thing is through our talent identification or how we look at the world through our perspective. We see everyone because I think when I worked at some of the larger institutions, won't call their names, but the people that they hire and you see in these roles and the people that move all look very much the same. And so they've come in because they knew someone. Our practice is to we open it up and we look at everyone. And so I think the just our initial candidate pool is just bigger and broader because we see everyone. And so I think that matters. And so that's how you get to a team that's 70% diverse and people of color. And, that just means that the pool is bigger and we're creating more opportunities for folks that, that need opportunities. No one, we could have a whole separate podcast about my career, but I can tell you for sure, based on some conversations I've had with my leaders, throughout my career, not all of them thought I could do this job. And so the fact that Mav, when he hired me, saw that I could, that speaks that he saw me as an individual.
Yeah.
And my resume didn't speak to, I should definitely be doing this. It wasn't like, oh my God, like, look at this guy. This is the guy. I think he also has an eye for talent. And, I'm very fortunate that I delivered for him, or I am delivering, or we're trying to deliver, in the process of delivering, I say. And so, but that thing gets replicated all throughout our company all the time when we're making hires. And so when you have a diverse leadership team, guess what? You have a diverse team. And so that's matter for us, and it's made a difference. And then when you talk about, you said talent, how do you get talent? And then talent retention, thinking about how people, how many times have I been and sat across from someone and I said, I see you, I see your work. I see the work you're doing. I see that mattering to people. And so, these are the things that I have the ability to do that weren't done for me too often. I have probably throughout my career, maybe 2 to 3 people that I could say, ooh, they helped me, but I have more people. I have a longer list of people that I felt was holding me back. And so now having this opportunity to plant seeds in people and to say, hey, I see what you're doing, or hey, you need to fix this.
Yeah.
I see your genius.
I see
but
that
I also
too.
see that problem you got. And being able to identify and say that in a way that they can respect and honor that I'm coming from a good place because I want to see them achieve. It's an important piece. It's an important piece of kind of what I bring to the role. And, it's an important part of my day every day to make sure that I'm letting people know that they're seen, that they're doing a good job, or having hard conversations like, I see that you have some issues. Let me help you with those.
Yeah. I mean, and each one of those declarations are invitations, right? They're empowering, right? And I think that's it's a really powerful thing. I mean, and I just want to underscore that idea of, folks sort of seeing you when maybe you didn't even see it in yourself, and when people definitely didn't see it in you, and gave you opportunities. Anytime something major happens in my career, there are 5 people that I email to just say thank you, because none of this would have been possible if they didn't see something in me that was not reflected in my resume, that other people were just like, this guy, what? That they gave me opportunities that I probably wasn't ready for, truly. But they empowered me by seeing me, empowered me to live up to my potential, or what could be my potential. I think that's just unbelievably powerful. And I think that should be an urge for, that should be a litmus test for future leaders on what it means to be a good leader, and this should be a litmus test for incoming, entry level workers to say, this is what I look for in people who say they're invested in me.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that. And there are so many times I wished in my career that I had somebody to have that conversation with. So, I think, I drive my assistant crazy because I'm always available because I want to be available to the people that, that need that, either kick in the butt or pat on the back, whatever the necessity is. I'm here for it. But it all comes from a place of honesty and true concern for you to build and for you to prosper. But the reality of it is also, because I always talk about both sides. It's the accounting side of me. There's a debit and a credit to every conversation, and also that there are certain times when you may not be a fit for us right now. And having to deliver that hard news too sometimes, but doing that with love and saying, look, you got a lot of ground left. You got a lot of opportunities left and a lot of runway. Go grow, go build. You may not be able to do it here, but I see what you are and I see that you have some abilities. And so even in those conversations, I think, we take great pride in making sure that we have a great alumni, and we, from whenever we're growing, we want to make sure that everybody's growing with us. And I can tell you stories and stories about, when the company prospered, employees prospered. And, we just work really hard at just building that culture within our company that people feel. I don't say it's a family. I'm never one of those, we're a family kind of guy, because you can't tell somebody leave your family. But we are a culture that really takes great pride in the people that work with us and making sure that they prosper and grow and develop.
Yeah. Empowerment as a disruptor. I think that's really, really powerful. What would you got a captive audience right now of folks who are about to elevate out of school, whether it's undergraduate or MBA program, or master's program. You have people who are like early into their career. That's who we're talking to now, who's consuming this podcast. What advice would you give them as they look to level up, as take big steps forward to disrupt the status quo in their industry, disrupt the status quo and what's expected of the trajectory of someone who was a marketer or a strategy person or a finance person or an accountant? What advice would you give them?
I think, I'm always of the mindset of growth comes from a lot of different places. And, it comes from good experience, it comes from bad experiences. Growth is just about staying in the game. And so I'm always telling, the young folks to make sure that they're taking chances and taking risks. Make sure that you are finding opportunities to grow something. If you're a content creator, I always tell you come to me saying that you want me to give you a camera and go make content. Well, have you made content for yourself? Show me your TikTok, show me your IG, show me your YouTube channel that you've made content that you tried to grow and build an audience. Mm-hmm. That's important in the conversation of whether I'm going to have you come to our company and help you build and create content. Yeah. So I'm always of the mindset of, make sure that you're trying to do the hard thing. If it's entertainment, entertainment is about building audience, and so if you've never tried to build an audience, you only really know half of the story of kind of how this industry works. And so I'm always kind of pushing people to take those risks, take those chances, build a YouTube channel. I don't have to be huge, but build it. Just show that you have tried. I think that's one thing. I think other pieces are just, always sell something. I think life is about selling an idea, selling a concept, selling yourself. You're always selling something. So I sold money back hospital care insurance for as a telemarketer at one point in my life. Horrible job, but probably the biggest learning experience of my life.
I did AAA too, so I'm with you. I did
There
AAA
you go.
insurance over the phone.
You ain't, if you ain't never put on a headphone and called somebody that didn't expect your call, you ain't lived.
That's a new kind of rejection, man. That's a whole other level of rejection.
And there's nothing like it. And so that idea of being able to sell something, helps you build. And always just ask questions. I think we just don't ask enough questions. We're in a world where everybody know everything. And I think in a world where people ask more questions, I think that helps us politically. I think it helps us socially. I think it helps you economically. It just helps everything to kind of look at it through the lens of how can I learn more? And so I'm always pushing folks to making sure that they're, meeting people that they don't know, meeting people that can help you, pull you along to a place that you've never been.
My brother, DJ Devin Johnson, thank you so very much for your candor, for your care, because I as you empower the folks at the SpringHill Company, I feel empowered just hearing about the way you lead, and the hope is that it pricks the hearts of people who are entering to business, people who are already there, to help create a better platform by which people can realize their potential. So super grateful for you.
Thank you for having me. This was fun.
Indeed. And for everyone listening, thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Breaking Schemas. I'm Marcus Collins, and we'll hear from you. And see you next time. Go Blue.